This video is all about organizational design, and it's one of my favorite topics I like to talk about. This video will help you understand how to approach any organizational design work. You may find yourself in a situation where someone is asking you to review a team or department, or sometimes the whole of organization is getting reviewed through a transformation process. And if you haven't done it before, it could look really complex, difficult to do. But I seek to simplify thinking and approach with this video. This video will be split into two parts. Part number one is all about three main reasons as to when we have to think about organizational design. And part two is going to be about 4 phases as a process that we have to take our organizational design project through. I'm going to create a second video that will specifically focus on a couple of organizational design methodologies. You can find many tools in my organizational design toolkit that you can download from my digital store, and let's get started. Organizational design work may be triggered by many reasons, but they generally fall into the following 3 categories: business change, perceived performance problems, and a merger. When it comes to business change, this example really relates to when organizations launch brand new business strategies that focus on new markets, new products, new customers. But sometimes business strategies also get reviewed and changed due to regulations or external factors such as political, technical, economical, and also brand new leadership team. I'm sure you all have seen from time to time there is often a new chief executive appointed to the leadership team, and that by default would trigger business changes. So these are the examples when you can say the reasons for redesign work is required because of these business changes. In terms of organizational design, critical concerns and first steps we should all undertake is to really build shared understanding as to why this is important. It's also important to speak to and engage all key stakeholders. First step as an HR professional is really important to facilitate a senior leadership meeting, to really answer key questions such as, what do we need to be really good at if we are going to succeed in the new world? And this really relates to organizational capabilities. The following tools are actually organizational design methodologies, and as I mentioned earlier, I will do a separate video that will really take you to full steps. But in terms of tools you could use to facilitate a senior leadership team meeting and really pull together relevant information, take you through the organizational design methodology to arrive at the right model. You could use, for example, the STAR model, which was developed by Galraith, and there is another model that's called the 7S McKenzie's model, and I will take you through these 2 methodologies and a couple of others in my separate video. In a nutshell, all these organizational design methodologies really focus on strategy, people, processes, reward, skills, shared value, etc. In terms of performance as a reason to trigger redesign work, this is all about perceived performance problems. It could be that your organization is not making enough sales and profits. It could be perceived inefficiencies. It could be that they need to make savings really quickly. It could be poor performing people, or culture levels of engagement as well are quite low, which could be viewed as a knee-jerking situation where organization is simply trying to deal with the problem through a restructure or redesign, when in fact it could be something else. I find when we do find ourselves in this situation and we genuinely think there is another way before we simply go into restructuring and redesign, that we should definitely challenge our senior leadership team on the thinking and approach and what they could also be doing to avoid major restructure and major work as a result of it. First steps we should undertake as HR professionals is definitely get to the root of the problem. We should use data, customer data, employee data, business performance data, trends, cycle, anything really that could help us identify where the gaps are and weaknesses are, involve the right people in developing a shared view of future requirements, understand the nature of the gap between current and required performance. Is redesigned really required? And ask that question a couple of times. If yes, then what? How is that going to look and feel? And then scope a project project team if there is a project manager allocated. If not, definitely look at project milestones and steps you need to undertake for all this to be successfully completed. In terms of tools you could use to help you prepare for this scenario, there are many, but in my toolkit you'll be able to find what works and doesn't work questionnaire, envisioning future success, mapping tools, evaluating current structure, and the 9 fit tests which really seek to examine design aspects which otherwise could be ignored. And a third reason that could also trigger redesign, and in most examples it does trigger redesign, is a merger. Often you may see merger and acquisition, but in my example, let's just talk about mergers, which is all about 2 or more businesses or units or divisions or organizations coming together. If you've never dealt with a merger before, or you find yourself as an HR professional in this scenario and thinking as to how can I help my senior leadership team prepare for this, because it's a great opportunity, it's a great project, and I would really like to add value when it comes to merging 2 organizations together or 2 units or 2 teams together. Step number 1 in terms of your own toolkit is to help them come up with a focus on developing a vision for the successful service delivery operation in the eyes of all stakeholders, all employees. What sort of culture or behaviors will support and enable this? It's also important to establish guiding principles with both units, departments or organizations and agree those with relevant stakeholders, and really be mindful of those guiding principles when it comes to your design work and your thinking and questions you ask. It is quite important to communicate what and how to relevant people, relevant employees, relevant stakeholders, which is basically everyone included. And also make sure that any redesign work includes both units, both departments, both organizations' representatives, so you can collectively work together as one team. You can also use the STAR model I mentioned by J. Galbraith, or the 7S Mackenzie's model, that really should help the new senior leadership team arrive at these definitions together. The second part of this video is all about the 4 phases as a process that we can take through our organizational design projects. And you can use this as a model, as a framework, as a step-by-step process that you can use to present back to your senior leadership team as to how you will facilitate and lead on each steps of any organization redesign work. The 4 phases are analysis, design, implement, and evaluate. In terms of analysis, as step number 1, this is all about identifying reasons for change, conducting a thorough organizational analysis, and be clear that organization design is actually required, not nice to do. Agree to redesign and establish a team that is going to support you with this redesign work. Design as step number 2 is all about generating design criteria, coming up with the design grouping alternatives, identifying coordination requirements, check fitness for purpose of preferred designs, and identify issues for organizational design. When it comes to analysis and design, these 2 steps can take an hour to do, or they can take 6 months to do. It really depends on how quickly your organization really wants to go through these steps, how urgent it is, how important it is, or how much time they have. And you need to establish this so early on with your senior leadership team so you know what your objectives are, where you can add value, and how long you actually have to lead on this piece of work. Implementation as step 3 of this process is all about developing a transition, communication, and implementation plan to actually make all this work a reality. Evaluation is a step 4 and final step of this process. Evaluation often gets overlooked because people simply either forget about it, they don't have time, they move on, and this evaluation of the new organizational design work of a particular team or department or organization gets really overlooked. But in reality, if there is enough time to do evaluation, it's all about evaluating how effective the new design is. Does it make sense? Are there any gaps? Do we need to make any more tweaks? And that's what this evaluation is all about. If you haven't facilitated any meetings before, in particular senior leadership team meetings before, I wouldn't worry too much about it, because if you are required to put together data, analysis, feedback, narrative, whatever that is, for us to facilitate these meetings, I find it's all about turning up with a list of questions. That's what this is all about, asking good quality questions and enabling the group to comment on that question, where you can simply take a note and do something with that piece of information that should then help you structure the next step of your org design process. That's what this is all about. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.